Every cake decorator needs to know how to put a picture on a cake. This is because time would come in your career when someone would demand that you put a picture on their cake. Would you keep on refusing orders that require pictures on a cake? We think not. There are many methods of putting a picture on the cake. You can either paint it on by hand painting, airbrushing, or stenciling, do a buttercream or royal icing transfer, or use edible icing sheets. Some people fear this technique of cake decoration because they feel it is difficult. However, it is not really difficult. In this video, we would share some step-by-step instructions on how to put a picture on a cake with two methods. We believe that by the end of this video, you'll be able to put a picture on a cake. Methods. 1. Edible icing sheets. The first method we would discuss is the edible icing sheet, also called frosting sheets. This technique makes the picture look very authentic as it blends right into the surface of the cake. These sheets are made of starch or sugar. Edible icing sheets have a plastic backing that helps protect the sheet and also keep it pliable until you are ready to place it on the cake. You can color pictures onto an edible sheet using different mediums. Some of them include edible luster or petal dust. If you want a cloudy clear appearance, use a brush to apply dry luster dust on the icing sheet. If you want your picture to be more saturated or bolder, then liquefy the luster dust before using it. Airbrush. To use this method, ensure that you hold your airbrush some inches away from the icing sheet. This is to prevent the colors from pooling or forming smudges on the sheet. You can also use edible color spray. Just follow the same rules for the airbrush. Edible markers or crayons. This can come in handy especially for real artsy folks. If you can draw freehand, you have an advantage because all you need is the edible icing sheet and some edible markers. For those who can't draw freehand, you can print out the picture you want. Place the edible icing sheet on it and trace it with the edible marker or crayon. Then, fill with the pattern with the icing of your choice. When you go shopping for edible crayons, ensure that they are made with non-toxic ingredients such as soy wax, beeswax, or carnauba wax. Also, check the process of manufacture to be sure that no toxic material was used. Printers. You can use a printer to print out any picture of your choice to put on a cake. However, you have to ensure that the printer has not been used with inedible ink. There are special edible inks that are designed solely for printing on edible icing sheets. Unlike all the other methods mentioned, this and maybe the airbrushing is not cheap. You would need a printer that's solely dedicated to edible ink, the edible ink itself, and edible icing sheet. We feel that unless you really do a lot of pictures on cake designs, you don't need to go to the hassle of getting a printer and all that. What's more, there are a number of cake or craft shops that offer the service of printing your picture on an edible icing sheet. On the other hand, as a cake decorator, it wouldn't hurt to have the whole picture on the cake bundle kit. 2. Royal icing or buttercream design transfer. You can create a picture with royal icing or buttercream on a parchment paper and then transfer to your cake when it dries. This method is mostly employed for decorating cookies, but it works just fine for cupcakes and a large cake. However, this method is not one to be done in a hurry. You need to dedicate a couple of days or more. Materials needed. Edible sheets, edible printing and tracing printed picture. The materials you would need for edible sheets depends on the technique you want to employ. But for the purpose of this video, we would go with the printing method and the tracing and filling with the icing method. So for DIY printing, you'll need the following: edible icing sheet, printer, edible ink, image file in hard copy, scissors, piping bags and tips, edible markers or crayon, the icing of different colors including black. In royal icing or buttercream transfer, you'll need the following: royal icing or buttercream, piping bags, couplers, and tips, tracing paper, parchment paper, edible marker, glass cutting board, masking tape. Step-by-step instructions. Printing on edible icing sheet. 1. Find the picture you want to use online or scan a picture and upload it. Ensure that your picture is clear and has all the details well highlighted. Then print it out with edible ink and edible icing sheet on the printer that is designated for edible inks only. Take into consideration the size of your cake so that you'll print out the correct picture size. 2. Next, cut the picture as close to the borders as possible. 3. Remove the plastic backing from the icing sheet and carefully place the picture on the cake. 4. For fondant-covered cake, we would roll out a thin layer of fondant the size of the picture. Then, remove the trimmed icing sheet from the plastic backing and place it on the fondant layer. Then we trim the fondant to size with the picture before placing it on the cake. The fondant layer serves as a backing for the picture and gives it more definition on the cake. Bear in mind that the fondant has to be the same color as the fondant on the cake. This method also works for frosting with high fat density. The fondant backing would not allow the picture to melt into the icing. 5. However, if it is a buttercream cake, we just ensure that the surface of the cake is slightly crusted. It should still be a little damp to touch but would not dent if lightly pressed with fingertip. Then place the icing sheet directly and gently adhere to the cake. The icing sheet would be absorbed by the buttercream without blurring the colors or the entire picture. Tracing and outlining with icing. 1. Print out the picture you wish to use with any regular printer. Ensure that the size of the picture would fit the size of your cake. 2. Place the edible icing sheet on the picture and trace it with an edible marker or crayon. 3. After that, cut out the image leaving a little margin to the border of the picture. 4. Next, place the picture you have cut out of the edible icing sheet on the cake. 5. Using a small writing tip with your piping bag that's been filled with dark icing, outline the picture. 6. Now fit your other piping bags, filled with icing of different colors with star tips, and fill the picture as desired. 7. Finally, use the piping bag and tip that you used to outline the picture to go over the outline again. This would redefine the outline and make the picture pop. Design transfer with buttercream. 1. Trace the picture onto a parchment paper with an edible marker. The finer the tip of the marker, the better for your transfer. Also, mark the outer boundary of the cake. 3. Fill a piping bag with black icing and insert a small writing tip to the bag. 4. Outline the picture. 5. Fill your piping bags with different colors of icing as required. Then fit with a star or pastry tip. 6. Using the different colors in the piping bags, fill out your picture design. 7. Always place the picture in the freezer after each application of icing. This would prevent the buttercream from smudging. 8. Check the picture to be sure that every little spot is filled. If there are any empty spots, you can use a small paintbrush to fill them in with icing. 9. Finally, fill in the background color. Ensure that the background color you use matches the color of the cake or the surface on which the picture would be placed. 10. Smooth out the background color on the cake with an offset spatula. 11. Place the picture in the freezer overnight. Place the picture on the cake. 1. When you are ready to use it, remove the picture from the freezer and remove it from the glass piece or whatever you placed it on. 2. Place the side of the parchment paper with the frozen buttercream on the cake and gently press it into the cake. Peel off the parchment paper. 3. After about 20 minutes, the buttercream should have defrosted. Dampen a paper towel that doesn't have lint. Use it to gently wipe off the lines from all the piping so that you'll have a smooth surface on the picture. Expert tips. 1. If your buttercream-covered cake has crusted, just spritz a little water on the surface of the cake before placing the edible icing sheet. 2. Allow frozen cakes to thaw before you place an edible icing sheet on it. 3. Dampen the surface of your fondant-covered cake a little before placing the edible icing sheet. However, ensure that there are no puddles of water on the cake surface. To make sure of this, you can spritz the cake with some water and then dap it with a dish towel. 4. If your icing sheet wouldn't peel away from the plastic backing, use a hairdryer on it for about 60 seconds. 5. In case your edible picture becomes dry and fragile, don't panic, or throw it out. Fold a paper towel into a square and dampen it. Then place it in a plastic bag. However, you have to let the picture air dry for about 20 minutes before you place it on the cake. 6. Always peel the backing away from the edible sheet and not the other way round. This makes it easier to remove and reduces the risk of damage to the edible picture. 7. Your edible icing sheet picture would blend with the cake within 5 minutes of placing it on the cake. 8. If your edible picture creases or tears while placing it on the cake, gently use a dry fingertip to smooth over it. It would straighten out. If it is a rip, it would join back with the rest of the picture. 9. Always avoid any water contact with your edible picture. 10. Gently tap out any air bubbles with a dry finger. In conclusion, this video is in no way a conclusive instruction or guide on how to put pictures on a cake. There are many ways, but from experience, the edible picture is usually the fastest and most convenient. One thing to remember is that there are different brands of edible icing sheets. This means that different products would react differently. Furthermore, different climatic factors also play a role in how each product would behave. We say this especially because of any issues with removing the edible picture from the plastic backing. We know that each supplier gives specific instructions on how to use their products. So, if you decide to DIY your edible pictures, be sure to follow the manufacturer's instructions to the letter. If on the other hand, you choose to order your edible picture whether online or offline, there are also instructions that would help you get the best out of your purchase. You would do well to follow those instructions. So, good luck as you embark on the exciting journey of putting pictures on a cake. Tell us how your cake turned out in the comment section below. Subscribe to our channel and turn the notification on, so that you will know once we post a new video. Visit our site, www.cakedecorationproducts.com for more cake content like this. Thank you.